give a little bit of more insight into what you saw that was kind of going wrong with the roster and how that'll be solved with this iteration?
Okay, so it was basically the synergy we had in mid jungle with Blue and Tinks was not really working good. Like they had a hard time coming to the same conclusion, seeing the game the same way. And also Treatz was taking over communication that normally the jungler does, which he ends up like. The thing is, he's basically everything in our early game communication. It's just like lanes give info, and then Treatz basically decides what we want to do. Even when he was still on the support role, it was like this. And that's something that's kind of harming for the game, because obviously he cannot see what I see, for example, especially because he's playing on bot lane and I'm playing on top lane, and it's like really far from each other and has probably really different goals in game. So moving him to jungle kind of fixed the problem in the communication that we had.
Yeah.
And also with Jesiz, who was our head coach before, who really knows what we were lacking, basically. He can bring that extra experience as well as extra communication to the team.
What's good, everybody? It's Tyler for Dot Esports, and today I'm joined by SK Gaming's top laner Jenax. After MSI, we have 2 weeks left until the season starts, I believe. I mean, first off, how are you? How's your break been?
Hey, what's up? I'm doing fine. My break has been kind of longer than I wanted it to be, obviously, but yeah, now I'm here.
Okay. Now, it's been a pretty busy break, actually, for SK. No new faces, obviously, but a lot of old faces and new roles. For people who aren't familiar or aren't caught up with the off-season so far, SK moved Treatz over from the support role to the jungle, so that's a role swap. And then they are also bringing in Jesiz from the head coaching position over to support. Now, Jenax, I wanted to kind of get your perspective on these roster shifts. Yeah, so from your perspective, kind of what was the process like making these decisions, and how involved were you and the teammates kind of in deciding the roster?
Okay, so obviously the process was like pretty long. It was like, first of all, what I want to say, it was not like an idea that we jumped on and we were like, yeah, let's do it. It was like the process of like, it started with us wanting to replace things, because we already noticed in the spring split that our improvement as a team, there were like some boundaries and it was hard to overcome them. And we felt like a replacement of things could maybe help us in doing so. So this was like we had concerns like during the spring split already, but we didn't want to change immediately from spring to summer. We wanted to give him a chance to improve over the off season. Then we started scrimming here and we realized that the issues we had, were still there and they got even worse in some parts. So we had a talk and we came to the conclusion that if we keep the roster the way it is right now, we are maximum gonna go into playoffs and then get insta wiped by the first team we meet again.
Okay.
And we don't want to have that. We want to have a roster with like a higher winning potential. So we made the decision that we need to change.
Okay.
And in the beginning, we wanted to get Gaius and Skins mostly, but both of them unfortunately ended up not being able to join or declining the offer. So then we were kind of in a pickle where we were already so far that we could not go back, basically, to say, okay, we keep the same roster, because we were like committed on the change already. And then we had the idea, or like Treatz had the idea, that he could go jungle, because historically he already played the jungle role a long time ago, but he did play the jungle role. And also in solo queue, his Riot account, when he got it, he played jungle on it, even when he was a support, because he thought that support in solo queue doesn't have the most value for him. So he is not like an unknown player to the jungle. And he brought up the idea. And then the reason why we are taking Jesiz on the support role over someone like, for example, Lilith from our academy team, is that the team we have right now is not something that's for the future. Like, unless we are, I don't know, going to Worlds and going really far, we are not keeping this roster. Like, Treatz wants to swap back eventually, unless he's next Canyon, and also Jesiz wants to be a coach and not a player. But the reason we didn't take Lilith, for example, is because Lilip is a rookie and he doesn't know how a team dynamic is working, kind of. And if we would take him, there would again be new boundaries that would come up over the course of the split, and we would probably end up in the same spots that we were last split. And now with the roster we have probably, at least that's what we all came to the conclusion, the highest percentage of making it as far as possible. And that's basically why we ended up taking the roster we have it right now. And everyone in the roster has like a big say in what we wanted to do.
Okay. I mean, it sounds good. It looks like you guys had a lot of time and a lot of communication about this roster and what you guys wanted to do. You talked about the kind of issues that you had with the roster you had last season. Is it possible, like could you give a little bit of more insight into what you saw that was kind of going wrong with the roster and how that'll be solved with this iteration?
Okay, so it was basically the synergy we had in mid jungle with Blue and Tinks was not really working good. Like they had a hard time coming to the same conclusion, seeing the game the same way. And also Treatz was taking over communication that normally the jungler does, which he ends up like. The thing is, he's basically everything in our early game communication. It's just like lanes give info, and then Treatz basically decides what we want to do. Even when he was still on the support role, it was like this. And that's something that's kind of harming for the game, because obviously he cannot see what I see, for example, especially because he's playing on bot lane and I'm playing on top lane, and it's like really far from each other and has probably really different goals in game. So moving him to jungle kind of fixed the problem in the communication that we had.
Yeah.
And also with Jesiz, who was our head coach before, who really knows what we were lacking, basically. He can bring that extra experience as well as extra communication to the team.
Okay. Now, I'm sure, have you gotten a lot of time to play with Treatz in the jungle, correct? Or at least practice a little bit?
A little bit, not much. I wish we had more time. But we played some duo queue and scrims, and yeah.
Okay, that's good. Because I was gonna ask you, how do you see is like the differences? What was the big difference that you found when Treatz moved into the jungle, and role swap? Like, what's kind of like the main differences between him and his playstyle moving into the jungle? Like, what does it bring?
I feel like the first thing I realized when we played, or we all came to the conclusion, is that there's just so much less questions because we kind of know what we want to do, and there's no like, oh, I'm not sure if this is good, what we're doing and stuff. It's just really like clear our game plan, and yeah, that's something that I really like, and also helps me a lot in when I want to play carry top laners. It really helps me a lot when the support mid jungle core basically is working well together.
Okay. Now looking down at the bottom lane, you have Jesiz, who's coming in. He hasn't played in the LEC for quite some time now. But how is it kind of playing alongside someone who was your coach the split before, and now he's playing alongside you on the Rift? Like, how's kind of the dynamic between you guys now that you're a teammate instead of a head coach?
I think just from like we all have gotten a lot closer with each other, kind of. And the team dynamic, the thing is that the team culture was always really, even when Jez was a coach, he was really like direct to players and talked a lot, and he tried to spend as much time as he could in the office, so basically as much as all the other players. So basically it's not like he's someone that with more authority, but it's not like he puts himself, like his opinion over others, so it's like not a big difference, I would say.
Okay. Now, I have one more question for you, and it kind of is moving away from the team and more so just in general. Treatz is not the only player that we're seeing role swap over to jungle. We are also seeing Whippo from Fnatic move over to the jungle for his team as well. I wanted to get your perspective and your opinion on possibly role swapping as a top laner, because you are a top laner as well. How do you think that kind of switch could be? I mean, first off, how hard is it to kind of role swap after playing in like a specific role for so long, do you think? And how do you think a top to jungle support? I mean, top to jungle role swap could work?
Yeah. Okay, so like I experienced this firsthand, right? I swapped mid to top. So role swapping is something that's really hard to do. This is why it's so like rare, and most of the times it doesn't work well immediately. Sometimes, for example, there's players like Perks who like immediately are really good, but that's maybe also because his team is really good and then it's easier for him to adapt. But it's something that takes a lot of time, because even if like let's say when I swapped, I was like 1000 AP on mid lane, and I swapped and I started in Diamond 2 basically on a new account in top lane, and also immediately got to 1k AP. But still, there were moments in competitive games that I did not experience, where I made mistakes or like situations I have not experienced before, and where I was completely like not hopeless, but my action was just the wrong one. And that's something that happens in lower elo. Like let's say in gold or platinum, there's mistakes that usually happen, and the challenger, people don't even try to punish those mistakes because they would not happen. Like decisions with Wraith and stuff like this. And this is something like to each role, there are some certain aspects where you can only experience them and then you learn them, and then you don't do the mistake again. So I think it's same, and those things happen in competitive games, not in solo queue, because in solo queue everyone like is adapted already. And in competitive, when people figure out that you have like the certain weakness of being really unexperienced, they can try to abuse it really hard by doing weird things that experienced players would like react normally to. But if you don't have the experience in a role, it can be really hard. So I think in a jungle it can be the same, where maybe someone like Inspired or Ayoya, who are like really smart pathing junglers, especially Inspired, can maybe take advantage and do something weird that would normally maybe even be bad. But since you are not like used to it, or you don't know how to react to it, can be really good in the outcome for him. So that's something that's really like not dangerous, but kind of scary if you're role swapping. And then from the top jungle role swap, the thing is that Vipo always was like a player that's super good at reading the map, and he was not that good in lane. There was a time where he was good in lane, but over the time he got worse in lane, and his champion pool also is kinda like he didn't really play Jace or Na, like those really play by the book lane champions. He always wanted to like scrap with the enemy, look for fights and stuff. So I feel like the jungle role fits him way more in the way he wants to play the game. Kinda in the same when I went from mid to top, the top champions fit my playstyle more than the mid lane champions did with me. So I actually feel like that Repo will have an not really easy time, but like an easier time swapping to jungle than most people think. And he will be better like than most people think as well.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's all I have for today. Thanks so much for joining me, man, and giving enough time during your break. Good luck when the season starts in a couple of weeks, and thank you, viewers, for joining us. And if you want more in-depth LEC coverage, please subscribe to the Dot Esports YouTube channel.